So if you look at this little graph I have, it gives you some definitions at each level of the sevenfold understanding of the human being. At the bottom, you have the physical body as the terminus, and at the apex, you have the spirit being or spirit man. Now, if we think of first the incarnation, we can say just for this, how first the spirit meets the physical realm, and then we're going to talk about how out of that meeting the human being evolves. So we have the spirit, the individuality of the human being, coming into existence to meet the physical world again after death, and after having passed through the soul realm and through the realm of Devakan, or heaven, spirit realm. It begins its journey again back to meet the physical body. And as it does this, it sort of communicates or orients its presence, its incarnation, in a relationship with these different levels or sheaves of being. And you can think of that as sort of, now the way to think of that is that graphically, say it goes through a certain point, and when it goes through that point, it sort of creates a little bit of a wave or vibration that moves out from that point. And so it goes through one point, the spirit life point, and it sort of creates a little vibration in that spirit realm. And then it goes through the spirit self point and generates a vibration, orients itself, orients those beings to its incarnation. And then it moves through this point we can call the ego, or consciousness soul point, and orients itself with those spiritual beings. And then it moves to the point that we can call for the astral body, or the sentient body. And then it moves through the etheric, and then meets again the physical ground. And so as it's come through, it has basically created a little bit of a vibration in each of these 5 realms: the realm of spirit life, the realm of spirit self, the realm of the consciousness soul or the ego body, the realm of the astral body, the realm of the etheric body, and then finally meeting again with the physical body. And this, can you think of it like an inception in the womb? So at the point where it meets, there's a conception in the womb. It has come through these spiritual sheaves, and now it is united with the physical body again, and growth and development can happen. And so the question is, how does this growth and development happen? And how are all of these other realms of being related to that growth and development? And so earlier when we were doing our improvisational movement, there was the improvisational gesture, which was the moon. And we can think now that these upper 3, spirit life, spirit left, spirit self, and the ego consciousness soul, there are beings which in a sense are gazing down upon our growth and activity and are raining resources into us. And if you look at the graph, you will see that I have vertical lines connecting horizontal lines. From the spirit life horizontal line, I have vertical lines connecting it with the etheric body. Can you all see those? Mm-hmm. If you look at spirit life, you'll see lightly, because of unfortunately it put that pink in there, so you don't see them as clearly, but you see like an orange rectangle, which is connecting spirit life See that little, so here's spirit life up here, and then there's an orange rectangle coming out down right here.
The very vertical,
right? The vertical orientation.
Okay.
And you see the spirit self. Then you have a bluish rectangle connecting it with the astral body and the sentient soul.
That's the big heavy one. That's more like a square.
Right.
Okay.
This is trying to indicate that the beings that are associated with the spirit self sheath are radiating their resources into the development of what will be the astral body and sentient soul. And the beings that are associated with spirit life are radiating their resources into the human being in such a way that will help with the development of the etheric body and the intellectual soul. So this development only takes place as a result of this radiating of capacity into the human being. Otherwise there wouldn't be the etheric life body except by this. So it lifts the human individuality up out of the physical. So the human individuality is lifted up out of the physical once it is merged with it by these beings which it has communicated with about its needs in its process of coming to this meeting. And so now they are radiating these resources, and the individuality has been lifted up as a result of that. If that was not the case, then there would be no development. There would be no human. The human being hasn't come into its own energies or its own resources, so it can't develop itself out of this early stage. It can't develop and form its own etheric presence. It needs the aid of these other beings. And so that's basically what happens. The spirit life beings radiate in, and out of that possibility you have this etheric body expression. Now this etheric body expression is the first of these sun gestures. This is the human being now expressing itself, and that's a sun gesture. So the moon gesture is the spirit life radiating in, and the sun gesture is the etheric body of the human being then becoming expressed. And so that you can even associate it with those first early 7 years. The etheric body is doing its work, and it will be freed after those first 7 years. And it's doing its work by virtue of the capacities being radiated in from the beings of the spirit life. Now, this is, I'm going to go ahead and then I'll talk about this next part. And so then the spirit self, the beings associated with the spirit self point, radiate in capacities that allows the farther lifting up out of the etheric and into the astral. So in a sense, we're talking about those first 7 years where the physical body is developed. Now we're talking about those next 7 years where the emotional and ideal life of the human being develops. And the perceptual capacities of the human being.
And because I'm a little behind on vocabulary, the first 7 years are concerned with the etheric body, and then the next 7 years are concerned with the astral body.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so the astral body then emerges as a result of capacity being rayed in. Now, the very interesting thing is that now the consciousness soul is actually emerges out of itself. It basically, we dwell right with those beings. We in ourselves are already, so this emerges in the sense it's these capacities, it's kind of hard to say it. We can say that these higher beings we don't have any consciousness of, and they're working on us unconsciously. But in around the ego body and the consciousness soul beings, we are very much awake in this capacity. We're not awake in the capacities that are streaming into us, into the etheric body and into the astral, but we are awake in the capacities. So at this point we are awake And we're very much aware of these. Steiner talks about this in the reading when he tries to talk about what is eternal. And he talks about this is really the beginning of our capacity to recognize not what is transitory in our own perceptions that come out of the astral. We have a perception of the chair, perception of all the things in our world that has emerged out of the capacities that have been rayed into us. We have this capacity to perceive the world. It's like the first instance of this is when a child develops object permanence, a toddler. In a sense, this capacity is a result of something that's rayed into them in response to the development of the appropriate development of the etheric. At a certain point, we developed a capacity which has been very well articulated by, of course, Piaget. Piaget's theories basically developed how we're able to eventually come to a concrete capacity to perceive and separate objects in our space and the relationships between those. And so we've come to that point by virtue of these capacities raying into us unconsciously from this higher spiritual world. But at this point, as a result of those capacities, we wake up to another world, a world of these understandings about these phenomena that is not just perceptive, but is conceptual. And we're able to say, and it's not just in the world of ideals, but in the world of emotions. And Steiner talks about that in terms of the eternal good. We can develop a sense of what is good, and that can be an eternal ideal. It's not a transitory perception, but it's an ideal of something that exists there, becomes visible. Well, so to that degree, we are awake in this realm. Our perceptions emerge in an unconscious way. We develop the capacity to perceive the world, but the capacity to think about the world is an awake capacity. So we are now awake and with these beings at the level of ego and consciousness. So
we are not awake?
We are awake.
We are now awake.
We are now awake. We are not awake to the beings of the spirit self, that they raise their capacities into us unconsciously. Mm-hmm. And we're not aware of those capacities being raised into us. And then spirit life also. But this raying in, this perceiving, we are perceiving the influences of the beings raying into us on the consciousness soul era in an awake way. I talked about this a little bit before, how we talked about what is thinking. And we said thinking was really these impressions that are being made upon us by the spiritual beings. Remember previously. And I talked about the tracks in the road. You remember that? And so the difference is the impressions that are made on us by the higher spiritual beings, the spirit life and spirit self, we're unconscious to. But we are awake to the impressions that come to us in this point of ego, body, and consciousness soul. Okay.
And this is about age?
This is about age 21 or so.
When that begins?
Yeah. When it wakes up.
So that's that second year, okay.
Now, you can loosely associate these with 7 years of individuals' lives, but now as I go back and talk about the nature of the soul and how it really manifests, we'll see that it's not purely a linear thing, because the soul consciousness has already been emerging, and we'll talk about how it emerges as we go through this development of moving from the physical to the etheric and to the astral. The soul capacities are already emerging, and why they emerge. And why they emerge has to do with the gesture that we just did, was the gesture of the mother, the Ba. This opening and embracing and opening and embracing the world itself surrounding us, the mother, earth. And what resources is it bringing to us?